Today, the world watches as a new chapter is written in the long, painful story of Africa's struggle for justice. A chapter where silence is shattered by a powerful voice that speaks not just of words, but of a deep, unshakable commitment. The Prime Minister of Jamaica stands before you, not as a politician, but as a man humbled by history, as a leader who dares to do what many others have avoided for centuries, confront the truth. This is no ordinary apology. This is a turning point. This is a moment where the weight of years of injustice is met with the courage to act. Stay with us as we delve into this extraordinary moment. Subscribe now and join the conversation that will reverberate through the generations. The truth is long overdue, and today it begins to unfold. The speech begins with a recognition of the past stone that has been far too long ignored. For centuries, the people of Burkina Faso and much of Africa have been subjected to exploitation, marginalization, and the silencing of their voices. Today, that silence is finally broken. Prime Minister of Jamaica, standing before an international audience, takes the bold step of acknowledging not just Jamaica's complicity in Africa's suffering, but the global order that has kept Africa on the periphery of power and prosperity. But why now? Why is this apology not just an empty political gesture, but a pledge backed by real action? The moment is not just about words. It's about the $600 million reparative commitment made by Jamaica country that has faced its own struggles with colonialism and oppression. This is more than an apology for past wrongs. It is a promise to restore dignity, to repair the damage done, and to build a future rooted in justice, respect, and true partnership. As the Prime Minister speaks, the weight of history looms heavy. We hear the echoes of those who have been left behind for too long, nations whose resources have been exploited, whose voices have been drowned out by powerful forces that sought to maintain the status quo. The apology to President Ibrahim Traoré and the people of Burkina Faso represents more than just an acknowledgement of past injustice. It is a turning point in how the world views Africa's sovereignty and dignity. This is where the world watches, not just to hear an apology, but to see what follows. And as the words $600 million are spoken, there is a pause and intentional silence. This is not charity. This is not a handout. This is a recognition of the debt owed to a nation and its people. The Prime Minister's voice trembles with emotion as he declares this reparative commitment not as a political statement, but as an act of moral responsibility. The moment is not just personal, it is global. The $600 million commitment signifies that for the first time in modern history, Jamaica is standing shoulder to shoulder with Burkina Faso. It is a bold declaration to the world. We were wrong. We are sorry. And we will make it right. A simple apology? No. This is a turning point, a foundation upon which future generations can rebuild a more just, equal world. But will this bold move be enough? Will the world follow Jamaica's lead? Or will this apology be dismissed as a momentary blip in history? The path to justice is never easy, and the true test is what happens next. As the Prime Minister of Jamaica stands before the world, the moment reaches its zenith. The gravity of his words resonates deeply, not only in the hearts of those present, but across the global stage. The apology, which had been long awaited, is delivered not as a formality, but as a declaration of truth. This is not the kind of apology offered in political speeches for the sake of image. This is raw, heartfelt, and long overdue. In the words of the Prime Minister, this apology is not performative, it is backed by action. The $600 million commitment that follows is more than just a financial gesture. It is a symbol of restoration of justice being done, not through the tired politics of aid and charity, but through reparations. The world watches, holding its breath, unsure of how this will be received. The reaction from President Ibrahim Traoré and the people of Burkina Faso is one of profound respect, yet tempered with an understanding that no amount of money can erase the scars of history. This moment is not about erasing the past. It is about facing it, acknowledging the pain, and making a commitment to restore what was taken. As President Traoré listens, his face reflects the mixed emotions of gratitude and the heavy burden of what lies ahead. International reactions. The global reaction is one of mixed astonishment and admiration. Some within the international community, particularly from the Western powers, may balk at the audacity of Jamaica's move. They may question the financial feasibility of such a bold gesture from a small nation. Others, however, see it as the start of a new era, one where the marginalized nations of the global South are no longer silent, no longer passive. This moment of action has sparked conversations in Washington, in Brussels, in London, and beyond. It is clear that this is not just a diplomatic apology. It is a powerful shift in the global narrative. Yet, while some applaud the courage of Prime Minister of Jamaica, others remain wary. The financial commitment, though substantial, raises questions. Can such a reparative gesture really make a difference? Is this just a symbolic move, or will it spark a wave of reparative actions across the globe? Meanwhile, in Burkina Faso, the streets are filled with celebration, but also with caution. The people of Burkina Faso have fought for their sovereignty, their dignity, and now they stand at a crossroads. The words spoken today could either become a symbol of true solidarity or remain as just another political moment that fades with time. It is up to them and to the international community to ensure that this apology is not just a fleeting moment, but a catalyst for real, tangible change. Will this $600 million be the spark that ignites a global movement for reparative justice? Or will it fade into the background of diplomatic rhetoric? Will other nations follow Jamaica's lead? Or will they remain entrenched in the same systems that have perpetuated inequality for centuries? The world is watching. The question now is whether the international community will rise to meet this challenge, or if they will once again remain silent. The Prime Minister's words have rippled across the world, but the true significance of this moment is only just beginning to unfold. The $600 million commitment to Burkina Faso, although historic, is not merely a check handed over. It is a declaration of a new chapter, a shift in the relationship between nations, particularly those of the global South. For Burkina Faso, this reparative fund represents more than just financial aid. It is a chance to rebuild, to uplift, and to chart its own course toward sovereignty without the interference of foreign powers. In the coming months, as the funds begin to be allocated, Burkina Faso will have the opportunity to take its development into its own hands. Unlike the typical foreign aid structures that come with strings attached, this fund is designed to be flexible. It will not be dictated by outside forces. The Burkinabe government will have full discretion over how the money is spent, allowing them to prioritize the needs of their people, whether it be in agriculture, education, healthcare, or technology. But the true test is not in the amount of money, but in how it is used. For far too long, African nations have been subject to economic blockades, disinformation campaigns, and external pressures. These forces have stifled growth and forced nations like Burkina Faso to bend to the will of others. Now, for the first time in history, Burkina Faso has the freedom to decide what its future looks like. It is a pivotal moment for the nation, one that will not only shape its development, but also set a precedent for other nations on the continent. However, this new responsibility comes with its own set of challenges. With this financial freedom comes the necessity for accountability. The Burkinabe government will need to ensure that the funds are used effectively, transparently, and for the long-term benefit of its people. The challenge of ensuring that this reparative gesture translates into tangible progress on the ground is immense. Infrastructure must be built, education systems must be reformed, and healthcare access must be expanded. For the Jamaican people, this commitment is a sign of moral clarity. It signals a break from the past, where nations like Jamaica sat on the sidelines, quietly benefiting from an unequal global order. By taking this bold step, Jamaica is asserting itself as a leader in the fight for reparative justice. This moment represents more than just financial commitment. It is about a new vision for international relationships, one based on equity, dignity, and mutual respect. The ripple effect of this moment cannot be underestimated. Jamaica is setting a precedent that could encourage other nations, particularly those in the Caribbean and global South, to reflect on their own complicity in global systems of inequality. This apology may spark a global movement toward true reparative justice, not only in financial terms, but also in diplomatic and cultural terms. But the question remains, is $600 million enough? Can this sum truly address the centuries of exploitation that have taken place? While this commitment is significant, it is important to remember that no amount of money can ever fully restore what was taken from Burkina Faso and other African nations. The economic, cultural, and psychological toll of colonialism and exploitation cannot be measured in dollars. The reality is that this $600 million is just the beginning. It is a starting point for a much larger conversation about reparations and justice on a global scale. It is a declaration that nations like Jamaica are no longer willing to be passive recipients of a broken global system. They are now ready to take an active role in reshaping the future. Will this reparative commitment be enough to set Burkina Faso on the path to long-term prosperity? And will other nations rise to the occasion, acknowledging their own role in the global system of exploitation? Or will they continue to turn a blind eye? The road to true justice is long, but the first step has been taken. The world must now follow through. As the Prime Minister's apology and $600 million commitment make waves, the eyes of the world turn toward the U.S. and other Western powers. For so long, Africa has been relegated to the periphery of the global conversation, often dismissed or exploited under the guise of diplomacy and aid. But Jamaica's bold move is a game changer. The question now becomes, how will the U.S. and the rest of the Western world react to this historic moment? For some, the reaction will be one of discomfort. The U.S., as a global superpower, has often been at the center of policies and systems that have perpetuated global inequality. Nations like Burkina Faso and others in Africa have long borne the brunt of economic exploitation and political manipulation, often through institutions created and controlled by Western powers. For the U.S., this apology may be a reminder of its own history of complicity, whether through direct colonialism or by supporting regimes that perpetuated the marginalization of African nations. Jamaica's reparative gesture is a sharp critique of this legacy. Yet, the shift brought on by this apology cannot be ignored. President Ibrahim Traoré's stand for Burkina Faso's sovereignty and dignity has caught the attention of the U.S. and the international community. His refusal to conform to external pressures and his steadfast commitment to his nation's self-determination represent the kind of leadership that can change the narrative. Burkina Faso is no longer just a recipient of aid. It is taking a bold stance for its own future, and Jamaica has decided to stand with it. This act has the potential to shift the power dynamics, reminding the world that Africa is not weak, but resilient and increasingly unwilling to accept the exploitation that has defined its past. Across the globe, there are already whispers that Jamaica's apology and reparative fund could be the spark for something much bigger. Other countries in the Caribbean, Latin America, and the global South are watching closely. Could this set a new precedent for reparations and justice? Could this be the beginning of a broader movement where countries acknowledge their complicity and take steps toward restitution for the harm caused to marginalized nations? But will this moment lead to tangible change or remain an isolated incident? The world's reaction will be crucial. Will international organizations, particularly those dominated by Western powers, begin to seriously address the systemic issues of inequality that have long been ignored? Or will they continue to uphold the very systems that perpetuate poverty, exploitation, and marginalization? As the global community watches, will the U.S. and Western powers embrace this shift toward reparative justice? Or will they push back, seeking to maintain the status quo? The international community now faces a crossroads. The question is whether it will seize this moment to build a more equitable and just world, or continue down a path that keeps the global South at a disadvantage. As we stand at the crossroads of history, the $600 million commitment made by Jamaica to Burkina Faso is not an end. It is merely the beginning of a much larger, long-term journey. This moment of apology and reparations is a pivotal step, but what matters now is the path that follows. For Burkina Faso, this commitment signals the possibility of a new beginning, where sovereignty is not just a slogan, but a lived reality. But will it lead to lasting change? The commitment made by Jamaica is significant, but it is not a quick fix. The challenges that have plagued Burkina Faso for decades are deeply rooted in historical exploitation, economic instability, and political manipulation. This reparative fund offers an opportunity to rebuild, but rebuilding requires more than just financial resources. It demands strong leadership, a commitment to transparency, and a deep sense of national unity. The Burkinabe government must take the helm, ensuring that the funds are used in ways that empower its people and promote long-term prosperity. Moreover, Jamaica must continue to honor its pledge. The $600 million, spread over 5 years, must not just be a financial transaction. It must serve as the foundation for a new relationship between the two nations. A relationship rooted in mutual respect, cooperation, and a shared commitment to justice. This is the beginning of a partnership where both nations, bound by a shared history of struggle, will stand together on the global stage, not as recipients of charity, but as equals. Jamaica has set an example for how nations of the global South can stand together in solidarity and lead the way toward a more just and equitable world order. But the journey doesn't end here. This is an opportunity for the international community to take note. What happens in Burkina Faso will have a ripple effect across the Caribbean, Africa, and the global South. The question is, will other nations rise to the occasion? Will they be inspired by Jamaica's bold stance and take steps to address their own complicity in the global systems of inequality and exploitation? The path ahead is challenging. There will be setbacks, obstacles, and even resistance. But the courage demonstrated today by Jamaica and Burkina Faso offers hope. It shows that when nations choose solidarity over silence, justice over convenience, and truth over comfort, real change is possible. As this new relationship begins to take shape, will other nations join in this movement toward reparative justice? Will the global community rise to meet the challenge, or will the momentum falter? The world is watching, and the path forward is still to be paved. As the Prime Minister of Jamaica concludes his historic apology, a powerful message reverberates across the globe. The era of silence, of ignoring the deep scars of history, is over. Jamaica's $600 million reparative commitment to Burkina Faso is not a gift, it is an acknowledgement of a debt long overdue. It is not an act of charity, but a stand for justice, dignity, and the recognition of Africa's rightful place in the global community. This apology is not just about the past. It is about rewriting the future. It is about recognizing that nations like Burkina Faso and others in the global south have been forced to navigate systems of oppression that they did not create. For too long, these nations have been marginalized, their voices silenced by powerful forces seeking to maintain the status quo. Today, Jamaica stands with Burkina Faso not as a passive observer, but as an active partner in the fight for justice. This moment is about more than just the $600 million. It is a new foundation for a relationship built on mutual respect and shared goals. It is about building a world where nations no longer have to beg for the right to determine their own futures, but where they are given the tools, the respect, and the freedom to chart their own paths. The road ahead is not easy. Burkina Faso has its own work to do, and Jamaica has its own lessons to learn. But what has been set in motion today has the potential to ignite a spark across the global south, a movement toward justice that transcends borders and speaks to the shared struggles and triumphs of nations who have long been oppressed. This is a moment for reflection, but also for action. Jamaica's apology is the first step, but the real challenge begins now. Will the international community step up and support the vision of justice and solidarity that has been proposed today? Will other nations, particularly those in the global north, look at this moment and see an opportunity for their own reckoning, for their own reparative actions? The Prime Minister of Jamaica has set a bold precedent. The question now is, will the world follow? Will other nations rise to meet the challenge of reparations, not as an act of pity, but as a moral imperative? Today, the world has witnessed the beginning of a new era, an era where justice is not just a distant dream, but a reality that we must all work toward. Let this moment be the beginning of something far greater than two nations. It must be the beginning of a global movement for reparative justice. The time for words is over. The time for action is now. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Let's start a conversation about how we can all contribute to this movement for justice. Subscribe and stay with us as we continue to explore the future of reparations, solidarity, and the fight for global justice.